ValveTime.net.
Hi, and welcome to the ValveTime News Roundup for September 21st, 2015. Each week, we bring you the biggest talking points regarding Valve and the community. Our rather late episode last week threw our production cycle off balance a little, and Nick's recent holiday hasn't exactly helped things, which explains why this episode is being released a week later than usual. Hopefully, we'll be able to get things balanced from now on. A seemingly minor and innocent update to Team Fortress 2 last week was quickly discovered as being a lot more sinister than first thought. The update, which introduced a melee-only filter to the sudden death portion of the pastime game mode, also added a number of flying saucers and UFO posters to several maps across the TF2 world, with sightings being reported in Two Fort, Badwater Basin, Dust Bowl, Gold Rush, Lakeside, Gravel Pit, Lumberyard, Double Cross, Barn Blitz, Granary, Hydro, Hightower, Decoy, and Doomsday. The comedically generic flying saucers are clearly very alien in nature, with the posters themselves parroting the likes of X-Files and numerous conspiracy theories. This is hardly the first time Valve have hidden large objects such as these around TF2 maps, as Dr. Grord Bort's rockets and Grey Man's carrier tanks have previously been sighted off in the distance sometime prior to the reveal of new content. In several cases, such as Two Fort, these new UFOs actually occupy the same general location as the carrier tanks and rockets, but it's certainly just a coincidence. There's no clear link between any of the maps, and we can imagine their inclusion was picked at random. There is also no indication what the UFOs will eventually lead into, but we're very confident they will have something to do with the invasion update that members of the community have been developing for several years. Before we dive too deep into the background info, it's important to remember that the Invasion update has not always been a project related to Valve, with members of the community such as Ronan working on videos, cosmetic items, and maps for years. It's likely that Valve have taken interest in the project in the last few months and will now be using much or all of its content for the next major patch, similarly to what happened with the community-created updates such as the End of the Line and Robotic Boogaloo. This means the leaked video unearthed earlier this year actually has nothing to do with Valve, and all the previously unfounded rumors floating around the community over the past few years just happen to have come true over time. This is shown prominently via the UFO's inclusion as part of the TF2Maps.net Mercs vs. Aliens mapping contest we mentioned here on the show several months back. The contest challenged members of the TF2Maps.net community with creating alien-themed levels, with variations of this very UFO model being provided as free assets by Ronan and his team, reflecting Valve's lack of involvement at the time. Exactly what Valve and the Invasion team will choose to include remains to be seen. With that said, recent rumors throughout the community make it seem as if the Invasion update will be released sometime this coming week, but only time will tell. For now, remember to watch the skies. After a couple of weeks of relative silence for Counter-Strike Global Offensive, this past week finally brought about a new update, and boy is this one a doozy. As announced on the CSGO blog, the update's main draw was the upgrading and redesigning of all the game's player animations, skeletal rigs, and hitboxes. The new rounded hitboxes should help remove a few of the accuracy inconsistencies apparent with the old rectangular versions, while the smooth new animations provide a better look at the player's actions at any given moment in a way that also improves the game's visual realism. New animations such as bomb defusing, weapon deployments, and ladder climbing also help improve the readability of allies and enemies no matter what they may be doing. These changes sound simple and unimportant, but the upgraded systems will undoubtedly help fix some of the game's longest-standing issues. Regardless, the significant amount of work Valve have put into these new systems shows their dedication to the future of Counter-Strike Global Offensive as a game for both casual and competitive players alike. The update in question also rather massively nerfed the M41AS, reducing the gun's armor penetration and rate of fire, while increasing the bullet spread, while the dual Berettas received some much-needed improvements. As usual, more details regarding this week's quite interesting patch for CSGO can be found in the changelog available within the video description. Our wonky release schedule over the past 3 weeks has made it extremely difficult to keep up with all the recent changes for Dota 2 and the formerly separate Source 2 Reborn client, which we consequently were only able to cover on our front page. After cutting huge chunks of content from our last episode to avoid reporting out-of-date information, we're now ready to recap these last few crazy weeks, which saw the Reborn beta client finally merge with the main Dota 2 client, replacing the Source 1 engine in its entirety. Numerous updates and blog posts foreshadowed Reborn's release for several weeks leading up to September 9th, 2015, when the Reborn update was finally released. With the client still far from being finished, Valve have several more weeks of continued iteration and improvement before the start of the fall major qualifiers in early October. A number of updates released prior to and after the release of the Source 2 client homed in on many different areas of the game, including the introduction of the Treasury Hub for examining and opening treasure chests, adding a 5v5v5 Desert Quintet option and map for the Overthrow custom game mode, and applying full support for the 64-bit client, which will now open by default for those running on a 64-bit operating system. Other useful improvements to Dota 2 released in recent weeks include adding a new Dota levels profile progression system and new trophies, re-implementing support for the international compendiums, merging the Friends feed from the main dashboard, modifying the width of several of the map's ramps, adding support for much larger custom maps, and introducing literally hundreds of other changes and bug fixes. While not directly related to Reborn or Source 2, a recent update also introduced the Harvest, Pestilence, and Sirocco weather effects as promised as a milestone for the International 2015 Compendium. Valve mentioned they are currently working on getting both the Axe Immortal and Desert Terrain items ready, so expect to see them released in the coming weeks or months, which is still a damn sight better than last year's Reward release update schedule. Details for all these changes and more can be found over on the Updates tag of the Dota 2 blog. Several weeks ago, much of Valve's upcoming hardware library was shown off in great detail to members of the public at PAX Prime in Seattle. Attending the event was YouTuber OMGChad, who recently uploaded a video highlighting the Steam controller while also interviewing Valve's very own Robin Walker, who many of you may know as one of the creators of Team Fortress. During the video, Robin and Chad run through the benefits of the Steam controller, outlining the various ways it can be used while covering a small number of near-infinite customization options. It's a great 4-minute video we highly recommend checking out if you still haven't quite managed to understand the purpose or design of the Steam controller. Oh, and it's also great to see Robin hasn't lost that amazing accent of his after living and working in the United States for the better part of 2 decades. So, good for him! We were relatively pleased a few months ago when we managed to become the first channel on YouTube to upload a full playthrough of Valve's upcoming ApertureVR gameplay demo, as recorded at a private industry-only game jam in London. Well, we're happy to confirm we were bested this past weekend as Brandon JLA and friends recently released a pair of short videos covering full, high-definition playthroughs of both the Aperture and Dota 2 Secret Shop demos using game footage recorded directly off the screen and with audio. Brandon and his teams have relatively free access to Valve's demos and the Vive after being provided with a developer kit to help with the Stress Level 0 studio work on their VR launch title, Hover Junkies. Unlike our own shaky cam footage, this HD video perfectly captures the video fidelity and quality on display while also providing the first online look at the demo's dialogue and jokes. Cutting back and forth between game footage and Brandon and his team provides an extra special look at the first-time expressions and reactions of those playing the demos, something Nick experienced in no short order back at the Game Jam. While we're sure you're all very excited to finally get a proper HD look at the ApertureVR and Dota 2 Secret Shop demos, we should reiterate the warning we originally attached to our own video, by saying this video and recordings shown in it will almost definitely ruin or dampen your first-hand experience with the Vive and Valve's own games, so proceed with caution. With that said, we couldn't be happier an extremely talented group such as Brandon and his friends managed to become the first to show off both demos in their full glory. While we're discussing the Vive, let's briefly talk about a super inspirational video uploaded by the organization Future of Storytelling, a group which typically looks towards new forms of entertainment. The video covers the HTC Vive and its vast possibilities that a motion-sensitive virtual reality device could bring. The video focuses on the experiences of Glenn Keane, a world-famous artist and animator largely known for his work on some of Disney's biggest projects, including The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Wreck-It Ralph, and many more. Despite being a largely traditional artist used to pen and paper, the video covers Glenn's initial excitement regarding Tilt Brush, the third-party application which uses the Vive's controllers to paint in 3-dimensional space before viewing your work from any angle. The video is truly inspirational and moving, and it's way more interesting and important to check out than we could ever explain to you here, so seriously, check that one out. And on that very positive note, it's time to wrap up this week and a bit of Valve news. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch TV, and to join in on the conversations over on the ValveTime.net community forums. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.